The galaxy, an immense and almost unfathomable expanse of stars, planets, and civilizations, had long been under the iron grip of the Galactic Empire. The Empire, a colossal regime that stretched across countless star systems, ruled with an unyielding hand, its influence reaching into every corner of the galaxy. Its fleet, vast beyond measure, comprised warships that were the very epitome of military might. These towering vessels, equipped with advanced weaponry capable of decimating entire cities or planets with a single strike, patrolled the galaxy in perfect order, serving as the Empire's primary enforcers. Their presence was both a warning and a symbol of absolute power. No world was safe from their reach. The Empire's military was a force of nature, vast and unrelenting, and those who lived within its borders knew better than to challenge its authority. The Emperor's word was law, and his fleet was the enforcer of that law, ensuring that no rebellion, no matter how small, could survive. For centuries, the Empire had existed unchallenged, its power growing with each passing decade. The stories of entire civilizations bowing to the Empire, of species vanishing without a trace or being subsumed into the Empire's expanding territory, had become the stuff of legends. These stories were recounted in hushed whispers among the stars, and no species, no matter how advanced, dared to rise up against the might of the imperial war machine. Entire worlds that had once been thriving centers of culture, innovation, and power now languished under the oppressive rule of the Empire. Systems were systematically annexed and absorbed, their resources exploited for the Empire's benefit. The Emperor's armies, relentless and merciless, swept across the galaxy, ensuring that no rebellion was left standing. Even the most advanced societies, those that had once rivaled the Empire in technological prowess, found themselves unable to stand against the might of the Empire's military machine. In this harsh new era, rebellion was not a viable option. The Empire's strength was overwhelming, and any attempt to resist was crushed swiftly and decisively. Those who dared to challenge the Empire's dominance were either erased from history or assimilated into the fold, their cultures, languages, and identities swallowed by the Empire's vast bureaucracy. It was said that no species could stand against the Empire, no world could resist its might, and no force could disrupt the peace it had established across the galaxy. The balance of power was set, and the galaxy had settled into an uneasy, silent understanding that the Empire was the true ruler of all. Yet, in the midst of this galactic dominance, far from the prying eyes of the Empire, there was one small, seemingly insignificant planet that would begin to shift the balance of power: Earth. A planet that, for all its wonders, was still a young world in comparison to the ancient civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Earth had been overlooked by the Empire for centuries. It was far from the core worlds, located on the outer fringes of the galaxy, where the Empire had little interest in exerting control. The humans of Earth were just beginning to explore the cosmos, their technology rudimentary at best, their understanding of the galaxy limited to the small world they called home. The Empire's view of Earth was one of indifference. To them, it was a primitive world, teeming with internal conflicts and struggles, but offering little in terms of strategic advantage. Their technology was outdated by galactic standards, and their military was weak compared to the mighty fleets of the Empire. Earth's people had never known of the greater galactic struggle, nor had they any awareness of the Empire's vast dominion over the stars. Humanity's focus was on their own survival, on overcoming their internal struggles, and on reaching for the stars in a bid to expand their horizons. The Empire had no interest in such a world. Earth was simply too far from the heart of the galaxy to matter, a backwater planet destined to be ignored. But while the Empire had underestimated Earth, humanity was quietly making strides toward the stars. Over the centuries, humanity had endured wars, political strife, and natural disasters. Yet, through it all, they had learned, adapted, and most importantly, survived. Slowly but surely, Earth's inhabitants began to overcome their limitations. They developed technologies that, while simple by galactic standards, were growing more advanced with each passing year. Humans were innovators, determined to overcome their shortcomings and push the boundaries of their knowledge. Their journey into space, while initially limited to their own solar system, eventually led them to make the most important breakthroughs in their history. The human spirit, resilient and unyielding, began to shine through as they reached further into the stars. Humanity was not just surviving, they were evolving, and their potential was beginning to bloom. Over the course of generations, Earth's brightest minds came together in a collective effort to advance their technology. They worked tirelessly, not just to catch up with the rest of the galaxy, but to exceed the expectations of those who had long written them off as insignificant. Humanity began to develop ships capable of traveling beyond their own star system, and as they did, they built the foundations for something greater, something that would change the course of history. These ships, while small and unassuming compared to the Empire's gargantuan war vessels, were equipped with cutting-edge technology and weapons that were far more advanced than anyone, even the Empire, could have imagined. The humans had begun to build a fleet that could defend their world, but more importantly, a fleet that could stand against the Empire itself. The Empire's spies, ever vigilant, had missed this quiet revolution on Earth. They remained focused on their ongoing campaigns of conquest, their eyes on richer, more valuable targets. Earth, in their eyes, remained insignificant. But the humans were ready. When the Empire's warships, on a routine mission to expand their dominion, ventured into the Outer Rim, they encountered something they had never expected. As the Imperial fleet entered the system, expecting a simple conquest, they were met with a shocking resistance. Humanity's ships, sleek and agile, appeared out of nowhere, ambushing the Imperial fleet with remarkable precision. The Empire's commanders, confident in their invincibility, were taken completely by surprise. They were not prepared for this. The humans had not only developed the means to defend their world, but they had done so in a way that could outmatch even the mightiest of the Empire's warships. Their ships danced around the Imperial fleet, striking with incredible speed and accuracy. The Empire's warships, slow and lumbering in comparison, struggled to react. The humans fought with a tenacity and creativity that left the Empire's commanders bewildered. This was not a simple defense, it was an outright challenge, a declaration of war. The humans had not just stood their ground, they had mocked the Empire's arrogance. They broadcasted messages over Imperial channels, taunting their invaders with unfiltered mockery. "Is this really the best the Empire can muster?" one human commander laughed, his voice brimming with contempt. "We thought you'd put up more of a fight." The mocking tone was unrelenting, a sign of the humans' unshakable confidence. The Empire, accustomed to the fear and subservience of the galaxy's inhabitants, was caught off guard. The humans were not afraid. They were not intimidated. They were mocking the Empire, showing them that they had underestimated humanity in the most profound way. As the battle raged on, the humans did not relent. They fought not just with advanced weapons, but with the spirit of defiance that had always been a hallmark of their species. They were fighting for more than just survival, they were fighting to prove that they, too, belonged in the galaxy. The Empire's once invincible fleet was now on the defensive, struggling to keep up with the sheer unpredictability and audacity of the humans. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's power was questioned. The balance of the galaxy was about to shift. As the conflict between the Empire and the humans raged on, it became clear that this was no mere skirmish, no fleeting moment of rebellion. The Empire, in all its might, had underestimated the humans in ways that would soon prove costly. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had maintained control through sheer strength, and its fleet had been its greatest symbol of power. The Imperial warships were massive, each one a floating fortress bristling with weapons capable of laying waste to entire planets. But these warships, so formidable in their design, were ill-suited for the kind of warfare that was unfolding before them. The Empire's strategy had always been about overwhelming force, firepower, numbers, and sheer intimidation. It was a doctrine that had served them well in countless campaigns, but it was proving ineffective against an adversary that did not fight by the same rules. Humanity, though smaller in number, was proving to be a far more adaptable and strategic force than the Empire had ever expected. The human fleet, composed of ships that were far less imposing in size, was devastatingly effective in combat. Their ships, while not as large or as heavily armed as the Empire's, made up for their lack of sheer mass with exceptional speed, precision, and cunning. Every battle was a display of human ingenuity, as the humans outmaneuvered the Empire's ships with breathtaking skill. They used their smaller ships' agility to their advantage, exploiting weaknesses in the Empire's larger vessels that their commanders had never even considered. It wasn't just that the humans fought with tenacity and passion, they fought with intelligence, with the kind of creative problem-solving that had long defined their species. For the first time in centuries, the Imperial fleet was forced to rethink its strategy. The arrogance that had long defined the Empire's military doctrine was being replaced with doubt. Every battle, every engagement, was a reminder to the Empire that humanity was not the insignificant, primitive species it had once believed them to be. The Empire's commanders were growing desperate. They sent in reinforcements, bringing even larger and more powerful ships to the front lines, hoping that sheer numbers would overwhelm the humans. But each new wave of reinforcements was met with even more resistance, and the human ships continued to perform acts of remarkable precision. They took out critical systems in the Empire's ships, firing at fuel lines, targeting communication arrays, and disabling weapons systems with pinpoint accuracy. The Imperial warships, so accustomed to dominating their enemies with sheer firepower, were now on the defensive, fighting to protect their own vessels from the calculated strikes of the humans. The situation was becoming untenable for the Empire. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the once proud Imperial fleet found itself retreating, unable to hold the line against the humans' relentless assault. And as the humans gained ground, they didn't just focus on the military, they struck at the very heart of the Empire's propaganda machine. In a series of daring raids, the human fleet broadcasted their victories across Imperial-controlled space, mocking the Empire's once imposing image. Across the galaxy, the messages were heard: humans taunting the Empire, laughing at their failures, broadcasting their victories over the open comms with unfiltered mockery. Was that the best the Empire could do? One of the human commanders asked during one of these broadcasts, his voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and amusement. "Come on, we expected more from the so-called rulers of the galaxy. Don't tell me that's all you've got." The mockery wasn't just for show, it was a carefully crafted message to the people of the galaxy. The Empire, once untouchable, was no longer the invincible force it had once been. With every victory the humans achieved, their reputation grew. They weren't just a band of rebels, they were a new power rising in the galaxy, one that had the strength to challenge the Empire, and more importantly, one that had the confidence and will to laugh in its face. The galaxy, once subdued under the Empire's rule, was starting to take notice. The underdogs, the so-called primitive humans, had begun to show that they were a force to be reckoned with. What began as a small resistance had grown into a full-scale conflict, and the tides of war were beginning to shift. The Empire, once so certain of its dominion over the stars, was starting to question whether it had truly understood the strength of its enemies. The humans' ability to adapt, to think outside the box, and to use unconventional tactics had given them the upper hand in ways the Empire had never anticipated. But the humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their place in the galaxy. They were fighting for freedom, for a future free from the Empire's iron fist. And in their hearts, the humans knew that if they could stand up to the Empire and survive, then perhaps the rest of the galaxy would follow their lead. It wasn't just about defeating the Empire, it was about showing the galaxy that humanity was ready to claim its place as a force in the cosmos. With every battle won, with every Imperial retreat, that vision of a free galaxy was drawing closer. The fight was far from over, but humanity's resolve was unbreakable, and the Empire's hold on the galaxy was starting to falter. The tables were turning, and the humans, once underestimated and overlooked, were now the ones dictating the terms of the conflict. And as they laughed in the face of their enemies, the Empire was forced to realize that it had underestimated the one thing that no amount of firepower could defeat: human resilience. As the war between the Empire and humanity escalated, the Imperial forces began to experience something they had never encountered before: a loss. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's previously unstoppable war machine was being outmaneuvered and outwitted by a force it had long dismissed as insignificant. Each day, the Empire's once mighty fleet lost more ships, their destruction coming at the hands of the humans' relentless strategy and innovation. What was once seen as an impossible victory for the Empire's enemies had become a growing reality: humanity was not just surviving, but thriving. The humans' ability to adapt in combat, to use unconventional tactics, and to make the most of their limited resources was proving to be the difference-maker. The Empire, with all its technological superiority, had failed to anticipate the one thing that made humanity so formidable: their ability to improvise and learn from their mistakes. While the Empire relied on its overwhelming firepower and brute force, humanity relied on cunning, creativity, and unity. Their ships, though smaller and less powerful, were nimble and equipped with technologies that allowed them to exploit every weakness in the Empire's fleet. It wasn't just about the technology, they had perfected their tactics, learning from each engagement and evolving with every battle. The Empire, trapped in its own arrogance, was struggling to keep up. For the first time, their military strategies were being questioned, their superiority was being undermined. The higher-ranking Imperial officers, trained in the old ways of warfare, could not comprehend how a race of humans whom they had once viewed as primitive had become such an existential threat. The Empire, accustomed to crushing resistance with overwhelming force, now found itself outmatched by a foe who understood the value of precision strikes and psychological warfare. In response to their mounting losses, the Empire began to make more desperate moves, sending in elite battalions and deploying some of their most advanced technologies. They brought in massive dreadnoughts, colossal starships designed to be invulnerable to any attack, yet still the humans adapted. Their ships could not match the Empire's firepower, but they could match its ingenuity. With every attack, they wore down the Empire's resolve, stripping away its confidence and forcing its commanders into positions where the advantage shifted further from their grasp. The humans were relentless in their pursuit, striking at Imperial supply lines, attacking critical infrastructure, and crippling communications. They didn't just engage in space battles, they launched covert operations on the ground, sabotaging Imperial facilities and infiltrating systems to disrupt the Empire's operations. Every strike against the Empire's war machine had a ripple effect, and soon, those in power began to realize that the humans were more than just a nuisance, they were an existential threat. The tide of battle was shifting, and the once feared Empire was now on the defensive. As more and more Imperial ships were destroyed or forced to retreat, the humans' reputation began to spread beyond the borders of their own galaxy. Rebel factions from across the galaxy, who had long been crushed by the Empire's overwhelming might, took notice. The message sent by humanity was clear: even the smallest of species, when united and determined, could challenge an empire as vast and oppressive as the Galactic Empire. The Empire's control over the galaxy was beginning to unravel, and the human forces, once underestimated, were now emerging as the vanguard of a galactic uprising. Meanwhile, the humans continued to broadcast their victories, taunting the Empire and sending messages that echoed throughout the galaxy. "Is this all you've got, Empire?" they would say. "You thought we were easy pickings, didn't you? You thought we were weak, didn't you? Well, here we are, and you're running out of time." These messages became a symbol of defiance for the oppressed and a beacon of hope for those who longed for freedom. What the Empire had failed to understand was that the humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for something greater. They were fighting for the future of the galaxy itself. And in doing so, they had sparked a movement, a revolution that was spreading like wildfire. As their victories mounted, the humans' influence grew, and soon, they were no longer just a small rebellion, they were a symbol of hope for the galaxy's many oppressed species. The Empire, in its arrogance, had failed to recognize the power of unity and resistance. The humans had not only proven their strength, they had become the catalyst for a new era, one where the balance of power was shifting in ways the Empire could never have predicted. But even as their momentum grew, the humans knew that their fight was far from over. The Empire would not go down without a fight. They were a massive, entrenched power with resources beyond the humans' wildest imagination. Yet, the humans had something the Empire could never take away: their unyielding resolve, their ingenuity, and their belief that they had the right to control their own destiny. With each passing day, the Empire's grip on the galaxy tightened, but with each victory the humans won, it began to slip further away. The humans had started a war, but they had also started a revolution, one that would forever change the future of the galaxy. As the battle for the galaxy raged on, the Empire's once unshakable dominance began to crumble under the weight of human persistence. The Imperial fleet, stretched thin across multiple fronts, found itself unable to cope with the sudden and relentless pressure. The humans, whose tactics had once been dismissed as primitive, were now a constant thorn in the Empire's side, their attacks becoming more sophisticated and coordinated with each passing day. No longer were they the underdogs in this conflict, they had evolved into a formidable fighting force capable of striking at the very heart of the Empire. It was no longer just a war between two factions, it had become a full-scale uprising, one that transcended borders and shook the foundations of imperial rule. The once proud fleets of the Empire, whose commanders had been trained to crush rebellion with ease, now found themselves being picked apart by the very species they had once considered beneath them. The human ships, with their lightning-fast movements and precise strikes, were becoming the nightmare of every Imperial officer. The Empire had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to evolve, and to learn from their mistakes. While the Empire had long relied on overwhelming firepower and sheer numbers to crush resistance, the humans fought differently. They fought with ingenuity, with unpredictability, and with a deep-seated desire to prove that they were more than the sum of their parts. The Empire had thought them weak because of their small size and limited technology. But what the Empire failed to realize was that humanity's true strength lay not in the size of their ships or the firepower of their weapons, but in their ability to think outside the box. The humans weren't bound by the conventional rules of warfare, they were constantly adapting, using every resource at their disposal to outmaneuver the Empire. They employed guerrilla tactics, sabotaging Imperial supply lines, launching surprise raids, and striking at vulnerable Imperial infrastructure. The humans had become masters of asymmetric warfare, a style of combat that the Empire had never fully anticipated. As the war dragged on, the Empire began to shift its focus from military victories to trying to suppress the growing rebellion at its core. The Emperor, realizing that the tide was turning, called for reinforcements from the deepest reaches of the galaxy, mobilizing every available warship and soldier to the front lines in a desperate bid to regain control. But the humans were ready. They had anticipated this move and used it to their advantage. Knowing that the Empire's resources were stretched thin, they launched coordinated strikes across multiple fronts, targeting Imperial strongholds and command centers that were now more vulnerable than ever. Every battle became a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. As the humans pressed forward, they began to gain the upper hand not just in space, but in the hearts and minds of the galaxy's many inhabitants. The message was spreading far and wide: the Empire was no longer invincible. The humans had shown that even the most powerful military in the galaxy could be beaten. This was the moment the galaxy had been waiting for, the spark that could ignite the flames of rebellion across the stars. And the humans, with their unrelenting spirit, had become the symbol of that hope. But even as their victories mounted, the humans knew that the hardest battles were yet to come. The Empire would not go down without a fight. The Emperor, driven by his need to maintain control, was pulling every string at his disposal to hold his grip on the galaxy. His cruelty, once a symbol of his power, was now becoming his greatest weakness. The people of the galaxy, inspired by humanity's defiance, were beginning to rise up in ways the Empire had never seen before. Once docile worlds were now breaking free from the Empire's control, inspired by the audacity of the human rebels. The fight for freedom was no longer just a battle between two forces, it had become a galactic movement, one that was challenging the very foundation of imperial rule. The Empire, faced with simultaneous rebellions across multiple sectors, found itself spread too thin, unable to contain the uprising that was sweeping the galaxy. Humanity had lit the fire of resistance, and now, all over the galaxy, systems and species that had once cowered under the Empire's boot were starting to rise. The rebels, once scattered and isolated, were now uniting, sharing resources, intelligence, and strength in a collective push for freedom. What had started as a small rebellion led by a few brave humans had now become a full-fledged revolution, one that threatened to tear the Empire apart at its very core. The message of hope that humanity had sent out into the galaxy was now being echoed by countless others. The time for the Empire's rule was over. As the humans continued to press forward with unfiltered mockery of the Empire's supposed superiority, they began to realize that their fight was no longer just for survival, it was for the future of the galaxy itself. The Empire's days of unquestioned dominance were numbered, and the rebellion, fueled by the strength of countless species united in the pursuit of freedom, was unstoppable. The balance of power was shifting, and it was clear that the humans, once dismissed as an insignificant species, were now at the forefront of a revolution that would change the galaxy forever. As the human-led revolution gained unprecedented momentum, the Empire's once absolute control over the galaxy crumbled. The Empire, which had built its power on fear, dominance, and unchallenged military superiority, found itself unable to adapt to the shifting tides of the war. Each day brought more setbacks, more humiliating losses, and greater doubt among the once loyal imperial forces. The human rebellion, led by the indomitable spirit of Earth's finest, had not only survived, they had thrived, spreading their message of defiance across the galaxy. Systems that had long been subjugated under the imperial boot were now rising in defiance, emboldened by the human victories. The Empire's inability to anticipate humanity's resilience and tactical brilliance had left it staggered. The final battle for the galaxy's future was fast approaching. Despite the Empire's growing desperation, the humans pressed forward with unwavering resolve. Coordinating their fleets with near-perfect precision, the human-led forces initiated their ultimate strike. The objective was clear: take the heart of the Empire, its capital world, and deal the final blow to the Imperial regime. The humans, now backed by a coalition of alien species who had joined the rebellion, struck swiftly and decisively. The once unassailable capital, a world surrounded by the most powerful defense fleets in the galaxy, now found itself under siege by a force that the Empire had once dismissed as insignificant. The battle for the capital was unlike any that had come before. The human fleets, smaller yet faster and more nimble, tore through the Imperial defenses with calculated precision. No longer outmatched in sheer strength, humanity had learned to fight using its strengths, ingenuity, adaptability, and determination. The Empire's largest ships, once seen as invulnerable fortresses, were no match for the humans' clever tactics. With each strike, the Empire's command structure fractured, and the once mighty fleets crumbled under the pressure of the relentless assault. The Imperial commanders, who had long relied on the Empire's overwhelming power to crush their enemies, now found themselves unable to keep up with the speed and intelligence of the humans' forces. The tide of battle turned rapidly. In an act of final desperation, the Emperor ordered the deployment of the Empire's ultimate weapon, a massive, terrifying dreadnought capable of annihilating entire fleets in a single, devastating strike. It was a weapon of absolute power, designed to crush the spirit of any rebellion with one blow. But what the Empire failed to realize was that humanity had already accounted for this weapon. Their ships, smaller and more agile, surrounded the dreadnought, using their speed and precision to outmaneuver it at every turn. As the massive dreadnought fired its devastating shots, the humans responded with calculated strikes aimed directly at its weak points, its vulnerable engine cores, its communications systems, and its weapons systems. The final battle between the human fleet and the dreadnought was a spectacle to behold. The dreadnought's once imposing power slowly began to wane as human ships, working in perfect unison, disabled its key systems, stripping it of its ability to fight back. Finally, after a series of relentless attacks, the Empire's ultimate weapon fell, and with it, the last shred of the Emperor's authority. The Empire, already on the brink of collapse, was now completely defeated. The news of the human victory spread like wildfire, igniting celebrations across the galaxy. The oppressed peoples of countless worlds, who had long been cowed by the Empire's iron grip, now found themselves liberated. The fall of the Empire marked the dawn of a new era, one in which the galaxy would no longer live in fear of the Emperor's cruelty and domination. Humanity, once dismissed as a primitive species, had not only survived but had proven to be the galaxy's greatest liberators. Their victory was not just a military triumph, it was a victory of spirit, ingenuity, and unity. The humans had proven that no matter how vast or oppressive a force might seem, it could be brought down by the will and determination of those who fought for freedom. The rebellion had become a movement, uniting species from across the galaxy in their shared desire to break free from Imperial rule. As the last remnants of the Empire's forces retreated into the farthest reaches of space, the humans and their allies began the monumental task of rebuilding a galaxy that had long been ravaged by war and tyranny. The healing would take time, but the victory was undeniable. The Empire's myths of invincibility had been shattered, and in their place stood the undeniable truth: the will of the people could never be extinguished. For the humans, this victory was the culmination of years of struggle, sacrifice, and the unwavering belief that they had the right to decide their own destiny. And as they looked out across the galaxy, they knew that their fight for freedom was not just for themselves, it was for all the oppressed, all the voiceless, all the people who had once believed they were powerless. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and in doing so, had sealed its own fate. As the new era dawned, the humans stood as a beacon of hope and resilience, ready to help guide the galaxy into a future where no empire, no matter how powerful, would ever again be able to enslave the people. The humans had mocked the Empire, and in doing so, had torn down the walls of oppression. Their victory was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and a message to the galaxy: no matter the odds, no matter the enemy, humanity would always rise. The galaxy was now free, and the humans had shown the galaxy that they had earned their place among the stars, not through brute force or subjugation, but through their courage, unity, and unwavering belief that freedom could never be extinguished. The future was now theirs to shape.